In 2003, Sierra Entertainment released a video game version of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. This was one of my favorite games growing up, the music for which really struck me as a kid and still stands up today. It was the opening theme and the later battle theme that I would sit and listen to on loop instead of continuing to play the game. It's not just the music that makes this game great, however. The gameplay mechanics, as well as the storytelling and exploration, despite being incredibly linear, that also make the game fun and memorable. While doing research for this video, I stumbled upon a set of presentation notes for a game developers conference in 2004. The composers for the soundtrack, Round Abernathy and Dave Adams, were two of the presenters, and used The Hobbit as a case study in video game music production. I'll go ahead and link the document in the description for you to take a look if you're interested. I unfortunately could not find a recording of the presentation, so all I have is the outline and slides for it. One of the things I was able to glean from these notes was how low the music budget was. I'd always thought the folksy guitar music was very effective in the game, particularly in the Hobbiton and Laketown levels. It created a quaint and believable atmosphere to these towns. One could even imagine the music as diegetic. Diegetic music is music that characters in the story can hear, whether they are making it themselves or listening to a recording. The term is often used in film music, but it can be used for other forms of media, such as video games. While the guitar music in these levels was absolutely effective, I didn't realize it was done mostly out of necessity. With only so much budget, the composers had to pick and choose in what cues they would utilize a full orchestra. The late game battle music is one of those places. I'll play a snippet of it here because I love it so much. Perhaps I'll talk more about that music in a later video, but for this one I want to focus on the opening menu music, another one of the places the composers used full orchestra. I found this an interesting choice, since most people wouldn't even stop to listen to the whole cue before moving forward with playing the game. In fact, the amount of music you have to listen to before you can press the start button is only this much, which is before the orchestra even enters. I could understand this choice if the menu music came back in later gameplay, such as in the 2018 Supergiant game Hades, where the menu music plays when you fight the final boss. But in the Hobbit game, the menu music is only heard in the menu. So why would the composers choose to use a live orchestra for this cue? Unfortunately, their notes don't reveal why, but I can speculate. Utilizing the full orchestra and composing such a short masterpiece for the menu music really sets the precedent for the game. It stirs up the air of excitement about the adventure the player is about to embark on with Bilbo. This is done largely through the adventure the music itself goes on. In just about 1 minute of music, we are taken on a journey through at least 4 different key centers. This journey is enhanced greatly through the addition of more and more instruments. The first of these 4 key centers is unclear from what I could glean auditorily. An argument could be made for either D or A minor. The music opens with a short breathy sound that goes from A up to E, then F and D. The D is sustained and an A is added back on top of it. Based on the presence of an F natural and the sustaining open fifth D and A, D minor is a distinct possibility here. Let's listen to just that much. After this breathy intro, the next thing we hear is a drum beat that starts to beat out time. Next, a harp sweeps up an A minor arpeggio, which leads into a Celtic whistle melody. What kind of Celtic whistle it is, I don't know. I just know it's not a D tin whistle because I tried to play this melody on my D tin whistle, and the range of the melody is far too low for the instrument. The melody it plays is shown here. We see an octave leap from A to A at the opening that settles on a D at the end. Meanwhile, the harp interjects with little arpeggiated figures outlining A minor. This suggests we might actually be in A minor, despite the return to D at the end of the whistle melody. The outline of A minor in the harp grounds us auditorily in a minor key. What's unclear is whether A minor is the tonic here or the dominant of D minor, although having the dominant be a minor arpeggio rather than a major is a little odd. All the while, the whistle melody feels out of time, adding to the uncertainty one might feel at the start of an adventure. Let's listen to that much. So we begin in some kind of minor key. This is quickly remedied by the bright folk-like melody that follows in the Celtic whistle. A rough sketch of the melody is shown here. The end of the first phrase lands on an E, which sounds like a half cadence to me, suggesting our tonic is A. The presence of F sharp, C sharp, and G natural suggests this is probably a mixolydian rather than A major. If you're unfamiliar with the diatonic modes, you can think of mixolydian as a major scale, except that the last note before you go back to the tonic is lowered by one half step, or one key on the piano. If we look at A major and A mixolydian side by side, we can see that A major would have a G sharp and A mixolydian a G natural. But the rest of the scales are the same. Let's go ahead and listen to those scales side by side so you can hear the difference. Mixolydian is a mode often heard in bagpipe melodies, so it fits well with the Celtic feel here. Additionally, this melody uses something called a Scotch snap, which is a short note followed by a long note. This is another common feature of Celtic music that contrasts with the more familiar long-short pattern heard frequently in swing music and much of continental European music. The Scotch snap would be da-da, whereas swing would be da-da. The use of these distinctly Celtic features, along with the instrumentation, gives a folksy feel to this portion of the music. Let's go ahead and listen to this melody. After this bright melody, the key center shifts again as the full orchestration enters. The presence of the brass and other instruments bring the music to a climax and suggest the adventure is fully underway. This little motif shown here is passed around various instruments in the orchestra, most notably in the upper brass, first the horns, then the trumpets, which have been absent up until this point. The addition of these instruments adds new energy to the triumphant sounding motif. The music seems to shift to E mixolydian for this portion. Note how we have all the accidentals for E major, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp, except for the D sharp. For reference, here is E major next to E mixolydian. We can see that the seventh note D is the deciding factor between the two modes. In this excerpt, we have a D natural rather than a D sharp. The shift from A mixolydian to E mixolydian sounds fairly natural since E is the dominant of A. Likewise, staying in mixolydian keeps the bright feel of the previous section going. Let's give this portion of the music a listen. What the composers do next is bring the listener back to reality. We jump back rather abruptly from these bright mixolydian melodies to a minor key that is not closely related to any of the keys we've heard so far. One final sweep upwards in the violins lands us on a C sharp. The harp then outlines a C sharp minor arpeggio, promptly bringing us back to a minor key center. The Celtic whistle returns with a downwards melody shown here that ends on C sharp, along with the background instruments. Despite this abrupt and short shift, the emphasis on C sharp helps the piece feel like it has met a true conclusion. Let's go ahead and give the ending a listen. The shift here feels almost like waking up, which fits well with Bilbo actually waking up from his dream after the first tutorial level of the game. In the dream, he experiences a taste for adventure, but is taken back to reality, waking up on the floor of his home in Hobbiton. Although the music takes us on its own journey through several keys, creating several moods in just about 1 minute, when it ends, it is not truly the end of the adventure, but the beginning. That is, if you ever hit the start button and begin the game instead of listening to the music on loop. Not that I ever did that, of course. Let's go ahead and give the whole piece a listen, paying attention to the adventurous shifts discussed in this video. The choice to use full orchestra in this opening music capitalizes on the adventure set up by the frequently changing key centers. Without the addition of the full orchestration, I don't think the sense of adventure would be nearly as evident in the music. In this way, I think the composers made an excellent choice utilizing full orchestra in the menu music. If you played this game, do you agree with my interpretation of the musical features of the opening? If you haven't played this game, does hearing the music make you feel excited to play it? Unfortunately, this game is hard to get a hold of these days, but if you can get your hands on a copy or figure out how to use an emulator to play it yourself, I hope you take that chance. As always, I hope you leave a like if you appreciate this content, and subscribe for more videos. Thank you all so much for watching.